Hi there, and thank you for joining us today for UnSCRIPted. I'm Angela Kashuba, Dean of the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy. Here at the school, we have an amazing community with a shared goal of solving the world's most pressing healthcare challenges. And I'm excited for you to hear unscripted stories of faculty, staff, students, alums, and partners. Today, I have invited Dr. Ken Phares into my office for a conversation. Thanks so much for joining us today, Ken.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, and I'm happy to be here.
So tell me about what brought you to the profession of pharmacy.
That's an interesting question because it's been a tortuous path. It wasn't a direct path, but I went to school at West Virginia University. And initially, I was interested in mechanical engineering. However, after a year, I decided it wasn't really what I wanted to do, and I changed my major to pharmacy. It was pre-pharmacy at the time. Fortunately, I was accepted and finished my degree within 5 years. And immediately out of school, I accepted a position in Jacksonville, North Carolina as a retail pharmacist. However, I lived in Emerald Isle on the beach, and I had a condo right on the beach, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven. Well, yes, it was North Carolina. It was a great situation coming out of the mountains of West Virginia. But I did work as a pharmacist for almost a year, but thought, I don't know if I could do this. I wasn't too keen on doing this for the rest of my life. And so I looked at graduate school and looked specifically at UNC's graduate program. I was interested in physical pharmacy, and there's a new faculty member, Dr. Kathy Kletch, and I was talking with her quite a bit, and I worked under her and received a master's degree, and then pursued the PhD program, and that was with Dr. Jim Swarbrick. I finished my PhD program with Dr. Swarbrick, and before I finished that, there was also another fairly new faculty member here at the school, Dr. Mu Cho. And so he and I put together a proposal to apply for funding for a postdoctoral degree. And it was funded by, at the time, it was PMA, which is the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association of America. So they funded me for 2 years. And I decided to work with Dr. Cho during that 2-year program. And we were interested in delivering compounds orally by taking advantage of the folate receptors by covalently linking compounds to folic acid. They would get absorbed through the folate receptor in the GI tract. And so that was our focus that was funded for 2 years. During this time, I was also networking with a lot of people in the industry. And one of the persons that I've kept in touch with at the time, his name was Mike Jozwiakowski. He enticed me to go to 3M Pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
And so that was a big step coming out of North Carolina into Minnesota.
Yeah. So let's just talk about. So it's a kind of a big step from mechanical engineering over to pharmacy. So what were you thinking during that time in terms of, well, I'm going to go to pharmacy? What was that decision?
Yes, so that's a good question. So I was at the time, and I think still am, strong in math, and that's why I selected mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
And so I took all of the math requisites for engineering within that 2-year time. But I'm not sure if I really wanted to be an engineer. And I'm not sure what pushed me into pharmacy at the time, but it seemed like it was something I wanted to pursue.
Okay.
And I can't really put a finger on what it was that pushed me into pharmacy at the time. Yeah. But I decided to take that path.
And it seems to me those skills in that you have that kind of drew you first to engineering are the same sort of skills that you applied and were using throughout your time in graduate school here and then as you went to work for companies.
That's true, yes. So I wish I had more of a formal background in engineering because those skill sets were valuable to me as I progressed through my career.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your time in Minnesota.
It seems 3M only interviews people for positions up there during the summer. Because
for obvious reasons.
As you can imagine, the winters are very, very cold. But the opportunity at 3M was unique in the sense that they had embarked on discovering a class of compounds called imidazoquinolines. And so these compounds, when given by different methods, such as topically or orally, they induce cytokines to attack viruses. So indirectly, they're antiviral compounds. We were interested in delivering them topically for the treatment of genital warts, which is caused by human papillomavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found a compound that would induce a certain set of cytokines that would attack HPV.
Mm.
And so this compound that we eventually developed and got market approval for was imiquimod. It's the brand name is Aldara. We were actually excited that that was successful and is on the market today. But there were actually a bunch of other compounds that we were trying to develop for other types of viruses. And so I was put into a unique position that I worked in discovery as well as development. But I could see the writing on the wall at the time that, yes, we were doing really well. And it drew a lot of interest from other companies that were interested in just buying those compounds from us. So that sort of prompted me to look elsewhere later on in my career at 3M. But at the time, the opportunities I was given were great for my career.
Right. So we share an interest in HIV research.
We do.
Yeah. So can you talk about your experience in developing drugs for HIV?
Yeah. So after 3M Pharmaceuticals, I accepted a position at a company called Triangle Pharmaceuticals. And Triangle Pharmaceuticals was developed emtricitabine, which was for the treatment of HIV. And this was at its early stages it just came out of discovery. It was in phase 1, phase 2, and we were moving it into phase 3. And so what I was working on is putting together a solid dosage form for emtricitabine.
Mm-hmm.
Triangle was a small company, and we partnered with Abbott Pharmaceuticals, which is AbbVie now.
Yes.
And so AbbVie had just come off of the classic example of making sure that all of the crystal structures of your compound are known. One of the first things that we worked on for that compound was discovering all of the crystal structures of emtricitabine. There were about 5 of them, and we of course patented all of them to prevent generic intrusion later.
Mm-hmm.
And then we put it together into a solid dosage form and moving it towards phase 3 studies. It was interesting that this compound, emtricitabine, was going to explode in terms of its market availability.
It's huge now for HIV. It's in almost all of the backbone. So that's pretty exciting. You being able to work in multiple different companies on products that made it to the market. Because a lot of times in drug development, that doesn't happen. You could work your whole career on developing compounds that just never make it to patients, but you've been able to do that a number of times now.
And it's just luck. That's what it is. It's just luck, because you're right. The probability of success for a compound coming out of discovery is very, very low. And I don't know what the percentages are today, but I know they're very low. And I was just fortunate in my career to be working on the compounds that did make it to the market.
Yeah. Talk about your time at United Therapeutics.
I was one of the initial people working at United Therapeutics. I may have been like employee number 32, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this company was unique in the sense that the CEO of the company, her name is Martine Rothblatt, had a daughter that had pulmonary hypertension, and there were no treatments at the time.
Yeah.
And so what she wanted to do was come up with a treatment/cure for pulmonary hypertension. And so she went out and scoured the pharmaceutical industry for anything that would be used for the treatment of pulmonary hypertension. And she ran across this one fellow who had worked at Burroughs Wellcome and said, you know, we have a compound. I think it would be very useful for pulmonary hypertension. And she says, I'd be interested in getting your compound. Mm-hmm. How much do you want for it? And he goes, well, that's not my decision. Mm-hmm. So she went to the executives at Burroughs Wellcome and said that she would be interested in buying this compound. And they said, well, we don't sell compounds to individuals. Mm. It's just not something that we can do. Yeah. So she went back and worked on starting a company, which is United Therapeutics. Mm-hmm. And 6 months later, she went back to the same people and said, okay, I have a company now. I'm ready to offer you money for this compound, and I'd like to buy it. They eventually did sell this compound to Martine. It was a compound that eventually was successful, approved by the FDA for the treatment of pulmonary hypertension. Yeah. And so it's delivered subcutaneously as well as intravenously, and it's on the market today. Yeah. And that's sort of a success story of how determined Martine is to help society, specifically her daughter.
Right. I love that story because she is not in the sciences at all, was part of Sirius satellite radio. Yes. and other things, but yet that grit, that determination, that passion, perseverance has created something that benefits society as a whole, which is really amazing. She has an amazing story, and what a wonderful company.
Yes.
So out of all of the companies that you've worked for, the experiences that you've had, which would you say has been the most rewarding so far?
The most rewarding would probably be 3M Pharmaceuticals. Okay. I had a lot of opportunities there that I took advantage of, and I think I was exposed to a lot of different aspects of drug development at that company. As I said, I worked from drug discovery all the way through commercialization at that company. I think that experience was very valuable in the subsequent part of my career.
Yeah. And it speaks to the flexibility and the value of a degree in pharmacy or pharmaceutical sciences, is that you can flex into multiple different areas and take multiple different paths. And so a circuitous path is absolutely fine.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's next for you professionally?
Well, that's a good question as well. I have retired from United Therapeutics. Okay. However, I am in the process of starting up a consulting company. So I'm putting together an LLC right now.
So an entrepreneur now.
An entrepreneur. Yeah. We'll see how successful I am there.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
So what do you love to do in your spare time?
So in my spare time, I also like to metal detect. Okay. So I have metal detectors. I have several. And I like to go out on the beach. I'm one of those nerds that go out on the beach or into rivers with my metal detector and look for different things.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ken, for joining us today. This has been a really fun conversation.
I really appreciate the invitation. It's always great to come back to UNC and see the School of Pharmacy and the campus, and I'm happy to do this anytime.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of UnSCRIPted, stories of those who make the UNC Eshelman School of Pharmacy great. And I hope you will join us for the next episode of UnSCRIPted, conversations with people who are advancing medicine for life.